Hey guys, this is Vikram Shankar from Lux Terminus, Silent Skies, and Redemption, and you are listening to the Progcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Progcast. This looks to be the penultimate episode of 2020, and I'm happy to have Vikram Shankar on the phone, so to speak, on Skype. Hi, Vikram. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It is a crazy day today, but I'm stoked to be here talking to you.
Yeah, it's an exciting day. I'm pretty sure for you, as it's as we're recording this, it's Friday, December 11th, and just today your new album dropped of your new project called Silent Skies. The project is called Silent Skies. The album is called Satellites, and it is a duo project of you and Tom Englund from Evergrey, right?
Yes, indeed.
So let's go back a little bit because I seem to remember when you dropped the first single, maybe, I don't know, a year ago or a couple of months ago anyway. You at first you didn't you made a little bit of a mystery out of it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was a long and interesting process turning this album into something that would see the light of day. And we were very carefully working with our label on the best way to release something like this. And the main reason for that is that this isn't another prog metal project. It's not a metal project. You know, the AFM people are used to working with metal bands, so they had to approach this completely differently. And we didn't want people to view this solely as a side project, curiosity project. We wanted people to really give it its full attention. So there was a long campaign really trying to sort out when and how to do this right, coordinating with Evergrey, coordinating with Redemption, which we are both involved in as well. And the time has finally come, almost 4 years since we started writing it.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is. Feels like an eternity.
So, yeah, before we maybe also talk a little bit about these other bands that are in the prog metal vein, all in, yeah, let's stay a little bit with Silent Skies, as of course the album is dropping today, and even though it is not prog metal, I think it's definitely something that lovers of good music might appreciate. So it definitely has its place here on the podcast as well. Yeah, so tell us a little bit how you guys met actually and how the project started.
Sure, man. So, Silent Skies was conceived by Tom and I over the internet in early 2017. Tom had seen me perform some videos on piano, especially of Evergrey songs, going all the way back to 2014 when I did an arrangement of Missing You from Hymns for the Broken.
Mm-hmm.
And he reached out to me saying that it would be really cool if we made a cinematic album together. And the idea was not to be, purely like a piano ballad record, although it does function on some level as that, but it's also more cinematic and ambitious in scope and influenced more by modern classical soundtrack composers like Olafur Arnalds and Johann Johannson, Max Richter, these types of people, and combining that with Tom's vocals, perhaps as Evergrey fans may not have heard them before, a much more dynamic, softer, elegant approach, which I think is really cool for longtime fans of the band to hear. So we were writing since early 2017, wrote everything virtually, sending files back and forth. And then in 2018, I went to Gothenburg to record the piano, back to Gothenburg in 2019 for the music video shoot for Solitude and the piano parts for Here Comes the Rain, the video that came out today. And
still have to watch that one.
it's a beauty. Patrick really outdid himself on that one, especially given that it's in quarantine times and there's only so much you can do, especially being a multinational. But
True,
he really...
True. But yeah, speaking about Tom's voice, of course, he always stood out as a very unique voice in the prog metal world. We did actually a discography special here on the Progcast a couple of months back, actually last year. It was last year.
Okay.
And we invited Jason Spencer from the Prog Mind to that. So that was Randy, M. Salo, Jason and I discussing the whole discography of Evergrey. And yeah, even though there are, of course, the occasional ballads and softer parts in Evergrey music, Evergrey predominantly is still a metal band.
Oh, yeah.
So
very, very heavy. And something that is cool is that throughout the course of the last 4 or 5 albums, Tom has allowed this softer, more melodic, less kind of power tough guy sort of thing to creep into the way he sings, even on heavy songs, which is really cool. And I really enjoy the way that he approaches his vocal writing these days. I think anyone who listens to the upcoming Evergrey album is going to be really, really blown away by how he does that. But we wanted to go even further on Silent Skies, and it won't be unrecognizable. You'll always know that Tom is Tom when he sings, but it's still very, very different from most of what he's done in his career. And that's really special for me as a fan of his.
Yeah. Thinking back about the discography project, of course, we, leading up to that episode, to the recording of the episode, we all listened to the whole discography again. And that was, of course, the time when I think The Atlantic was probably already out. So, yeah, I already said back then that I became a huge fan of Evergrey when The Inner Circle came out, and then actually kind of dropped out again with Monday Morning Apocalypse. Or after that, kind of lost a little bit of interest. And for many years, I just thought, yeah, they're cool, but they were not my absolute favorite band. And then with The Storm Within only, I got back to them and like to really into them. And then also discovered Hymns for the Broken, retrospectively, that you just mentioned. And I can definitely see this or hear these new nuances that you just mentioned in his vocal approach on these newer Evergrey records that I really enjoy as well.
Oh yeah, it's super cool what he's done with that, and it makes him even more unique as a metal singer. And I think to begin with, he was a very unique metal singer. I remember when I first fell in love with his voice, I actually loved it because it reminded me of Bruce Springsteen it's gruff, but very emotionally sensitive and very emotionally evocative. And I've always loved that about him, but it just more and more becomes more refined and more artistic. And, he's one of a kind.
So you said you first got together at the beginning of 2017, and you up until then you had a couple of YouTube videos out and stuff. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there was any album of any major project of yours that was out by that time, right?
It took until, I guess, 2018 for anything I released to have any meaningful traction. And that's because I graduated university in 2017. So until then, I was focused on my studies, or as focused as I could be, and I was writing Lux Terminus starting in, I guess, 2016. But it was not really until finishing university and diving into recording Lux Terminus that I really began to have this time to explore creating original music. And I like to think that I've been working to make up for that ever since by pretty much a release a year if I can make it.
Yeah,
Sometimes two.
it is not the only release this year, the Silent Skies release for you, because there's been in the summer, August 28th, the Redemption live album, Alive in Color, dropped, right?
Yes.
With a recording from Prog Power USA. And
Yes, indeed.
Going back to the history, like, of your releases, you just said not until 2018, and that in that summer actually 2 records also came out, and that was both the Lux Terminus debut record, The Courage to Be, and the first Redemption record where you were playing on Long Night's Journey into the Day. But yeah, so I'm super curious about the story, how you got involved with Redemption, and I guess Tom has something to do with it.
Tom has everything to do with it because we throughout 2017 we had been working on our music and had pretty much, I guess, by and large finished writing the record. We at least had a bunch of very strong demos together, and I attended Prog Power 2017 where I first met Nick. He took me to brunch the morning after the festival, and he told me his band Redemption's playing the festival next year. He's heard from Tom that I'm a capable keyboard player, and he'd like to bring me aboard. We talked music. Next month, he flew me out to LA, and we hung out. I worked a little bit on the upcoming album, Long Night's Journey, which had almost been completed, but I was able to sneak some stuff in there the very last second. But that was really the trial by fire to see if I really gelled with him as well as the other US-based members of the band. And, we had a fantastic time, and I think it was no looking back from then. But yeah, it started with Tom.
It's I love these kind of coincidences when one thing leads to the other, and yeah, new musical friendships and collaborations are formed.
Yeah, dude, I feel like that's been like my whole career has been friendships leading to new endeavors, and I think that that's the best way to do it, because I've been very fortunate that I've really liked or been friends with everybody I've worked with for the most part, and that's been really special, because you hear so many horror stories about bands that are put together for purely professional reasons, and people don't like each other, and it fizzles out, and it's just not a pleasant experience. But I love making music with my friends, and that's pretty much what I've been doing for a few years now.
Speaking of which, we already mentioned the name a couple of times. Of course, your own solo, not really solo vehicle, but it's probably it's definitely more your own music than Redemption is ever gonna be. And yeah, Lux Terminus released their debut album, The Courage to Be, in 2018, and yeah, you have something special coming up next week, actually. That's also a little bit connected with me.
Yeah, you could say that. Just to go back for a second, about Redemption and creative input. I'm really stoked about the fact that we've been writing this year for the upcoming Redemption music, and I'm super stoked about the fact that I've been co-writing that with Nick, which is, I believe, the first time he's ever had a co-writer, like a proper dedicated co-writer. And there are a bunch of songs that I originated as well. So, it's always, first and foremost, it has to be Nick's vehicle. Yeah. It has to be Nick's soul. But it does express a part of me that I cannot do in Lux Terminus, because I set these parameters of no permanent guitar player in Lux Terminus. So while I love that in terms of the expression that it allows me to do, and I can do a lot of things you can't do in a traditional metal band, it does mean that, as far as the good old riff is concerned, there's nothing like a distorted guitar for a riff. So, I'm happy to have that outlet as well. But you're right that Lux Terminus is probably the most exploratory vehicle I have, where the things that I can't say in other groups, because that's what the groups are, I can put it into Lux Terminus, whether it's electronic music, cinematic, prog, gent, jazz fusion, it kind of doesn't matter with Lux Terminus, which is cool. And I will be able to present some of that on the festival, which takes place 1 week from today, going into Saturday, the 19th.
Yes. So as it looks now, this episode is most probably going to drop next Thursday. So actually,
never mind, it takes place tomorrow. Stay tuned.
Yeah, and for those of you out there who are listening to this, and if you've never heard of Lux Terminus before, as you might have heard from what we've talked about right now, they are an instrumental trio, and it's you together with
my good friends from Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up. They are Matthew Kirshner on drums and Brian Kraft on bass. And it was very important when I started Lux Terminus to have those two guys playing, because way back in 2012, when I was still in high school, I joined a band of dudes a few years older than me who were playing a lot of these Cleveland metal shows called Gravity. And they were the rhythm section from Gravity. And the band broke up a year later, but I've always been very close to those guys, and I think that they're really great musicians who, if I'm able to give them a window for the prog community as a whole to appreciate their talents, then I'm going to jump all over that opportunity. And I think a lot of people really appreciate hearing these guys who, they would have never heard otherwise.
Absolutely. And yeah, I have seen the video you sent already, and I have to say it's a very beautiful one. It is I think we can say it is the 20-minute title track, The Courage to Be, including the guest cello and guitar roles with Timo Sommers from Epica and the wonderful Raphael Reinroth Brown, who will also be performing as his own solo artist on the festival. There you go. Yeah, I'm super excited to have you guys on the festival, and I'm also curious, of course, if there's anything new in the Lux Terminus camp, or if there's any predictive news, so to speak.
Yeah, right. Well, for a while, I had to concentrate my energies wherever I could spare them, and I was working on a lot of other projects leading up to this point, Silent Skies and Redemption, and I've kind of been building up a career as a session keyboard player and producer and mixer and all this stuff. So I didn't really have a lot of energy to devote to Lux Terminus, but that changed at some point this year, and slowly but surely we've started shaping together material for the next album. So I can optimistically say sometime next year, and perhaps more realistically say the year after that. But it's being worked on, and I think people who liked The Courage to Be are not going to be disappointed.
Yeah, that sounds great. So yeah, hopefully towards the end of next year, at the beginning of 22 latest. Yeah, awesome. I'm really excited about all these musical things that you're up to. Now we had a lot of people on the Progcast, obviously, the last months over these lockdown periods. It's just very convenient to just call them up on Skype and talk about their new releases. But not many of them are so well versed in the soundtrack department, as you already mentioned earlier. in this interview. So I wanted to make a little special "What's in Your Walkman" slash inspirational corner here. "What's in Your Walkman" is our usual section at the end of the interview where we talk about what we've listened lately.
Right.
And that's mostly just other prog, metal, rock, pop, or whatever. But I'm especially curious about some of your favorite soundtrack picks, maybe, that you would recommend to our listeners and to your fans to listen to, that you find especially moving, beautiful, extraordinarily amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Does it have to be from this year? Because if so, I'm actually going to not quite have as much.
No, not at all. Let's do it like all time.
Sure.
Like some favorite picks.
Okay, well, I have to start anytime people talk about this type of music with me. I have to start with Olafur Arnalds, the Icelandic composer who has not just soundtracks, but some really, really great solo material. And I think actually at this point, he's probably doing more solo albums than soundtracks. Mm-hmm. But he put out an album last month, I guess, called Some Kind of Peace, which is really beautiful. He has a very nuanced approach to composition, piano and soundscapes, and tastefully done electronic percussion. And specifically in the soundtrack world, he scored a TV series called Broadchurch, which is, if I have to pick a favorite OST, that would probably be the winner. I think that's a really, really special collection of music. And then if you watch the TV series and watch how the music is implemented, it's really powerful.
I think wasn't Arnor from Agent Fresco also part of one of a song or something on that soundtrack?
Yeah, there are a few songs on that soundtrack that have vocals, and Arnor does those, and he actually sings on one of Olafur's solo records as well. The album For Now I Am Winter, I think is what it's called. But yeah, they have a collaboration that goes back a few years, and hearing Arnor's voice on that beautifully subtle, sensitive music is like out of this world. It's so gorgeous. I cannot recommend it highly enough.
I know after this show, after we're done, I have so much to catch up on, and I'm gonna take away so much from it because, of course, I know these names, but I never really took the time to really explore them. So yeah, this is the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Some others that I can recommend to people. Max Richter is a fantastic composer, although probably my favorite record of his is not a soundtrack. If you go onto Spotify, you'll see a vast collection of soundtracks. That's what he does, but he has this, I guess it's a solo album. It may be a soundtrack for a ballet, actually, but it's called Three Worlds Music from Wolfworks, Max Richter, and it's interpretation of Virginia Woolf poems.
Oh, wow.
And it's so powerful. And for people who like the kind of the sad side of the spectrum, the closing track is a setting of her suicide note. And that is some strong stuff. That is not for the faint of heart, but it's so good. It's so good. And that whole album was very influential for me, the way I approach orchestral writing and things like that.
I can't wait to listen to these recommendations. Yeah, leading up to this quite spontaneous interview, I did a little brainstorming and thought which soundtracks have kind of had a significant impact on me, on my musical journey, and kind of the first that really sticks out is a very random pick from 1993, I believe, from Kitaro, the song, the movie. The movie was called Heaven and Earth. It was a Vietnam movie from Oliver Stone with Tommy Lee Jones, and I have actually never seen the movie, but somehow I think I've probably found the CD of this soundtrack in the local library where I was living back then when I was
Okay.
12, 14 or 13, 14, I don't know. So this soundtrack had a really profound influence on my like it was so soul shaking, even though I've never seen the movie.
Right. No, I don't know that one. I'll have to check it out.
So I will also go back and listen to it later or at some point in the next days. And another one I've been meaning to check out since last year. I think it came out last year, and that was from my good friend David Bertok, a keyboard player who used to play in Munich prog rock band Subsignal, but now he lives in LA and he's working as a soundtrack composer and orchestrator and arranger. And last year he composed a soundtrack for a documentary about the painter Botero.
Oh, okay.
That's one blind recommendation here because I really like his artistic voice, so to speak, from what I know how he composes progressive rock.
Right.
But I've never actually listened to that soundtrack, so I'm really looking forward to doing that now. He also has a new prog pop, cinematic pop band, more or less, called the Arc of Light. They released 2 or 3 singles already, and let's see when the album will actually drop.
Oh, I saw someone post about that today. Arc of Light, but I didn't know it had anything to do with a Subsignal alum. I quite enjoy their music, so I'll have to check both of those out.
Well, the thing is, I have to check that because I think Arc of Light without the at the beginning, that's a kind of new Yes Side project. I just seen the picture from what the Prog magazine posted, and I recognized the.
That's the one. That's the one with Dave Kersner. You're right. I'm getting them mixed up.
Yeah, I didn't really check the personnel involved. It just said like kind of side
Yes, man.
offshoot. I think I recognized how's the current Yes singer called Davidson?
Davison?
John Davison. Yeah, right. I think
okay. Different Arc of Light.
Yeah, and I saw this Arc of Light popping up a couple of days ago, and I thought, my my friends in the Arc of Light are gonna be a bit bummed out now, but they have been existing for 2 years or so now and have all their online presence already, and already a couple of
See, if you have a
Singles
name
out.
in bastardized Latin like Lux Terminus, you'll never have that issue.
All right, anything for the regular what's in your Walkman section? Anything that you've been listening to lately from it doesn't matter if it's prog, metal, pop,
Yeah, sure.
that you want to recommend.
Sure thing. Actually, it's funny you asked that because every year up until this year, I've kept stickies, whatever, up on my computer, and I'd write down every new album I'd listened to. It doesn't even matter if I thought it was fantastic. I could have thought it was okay. I'd write it down, and at the end of the year, I'd have this stupidly long list of albums, and then I'd sort them, and I'd pick a top 20 and write my thoughts or whatever. But this year, I've been so busy with actually making music that I'm still listening to new music, but I slacked a little bit on the cataloging of it. So just the other day, I pulled up a sticky and I was trying to write down some albums that really meant something to me this year. So let's see what I can offer up from here. Just pick and choose from outside the prog world. I have to say that the new Dua Lipa, Future Nostalgia, is a fantastic album.
I think it was Adam Warren from Kairos already recommended that one as well when I talked to him.
He would. I love that album. It's so good. Bruce Springsteen's Letter to You has some really nice songs on it. And a Faroese singer named Eivør has a new album. I think it's pronounced Segel, Segl, but it's actually a little bit more along the lines of what Silent Skies does, but more poppy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really beautiful, remarkable female voice, but darker, poppier, Nordic folk kind of elements. Really cool record. And then more in the prog world, let's see. Haken's Virus, very, very good album. Katatonia, City Burials is probably, if I had to pick like a top 3 of the year, I think that would be in it. That album is just outrageous, and I knew I would love it because I'll love anything Katatonia does, but that is a hell of an album. Plini, Impulse Voices. Wish I had more time to dig into it. I've only listened to it a few times, but every time I've listened to it, I've just been like, holy crap.
There's a lot there to unpack. I mean, it's gentle and smooth on the outside. I mean, you can listen to it and just enjoy it for what it is, but I think you can also really dig into the stuff he did there from a music standpoint, like and yeah, take it apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, he's a genius. The way he writes is. He has a way of making extremely complicated music palatable in a way that I think very few people can. And he can simultaneously appeal to like the old guard and gent kids at the same time.
That's true.
You know, it is really cool, and it's no surprise that he's making the waves that he is.
I actually saw last week. I was out and taking the S-Bahn here in Munich. And so the local transport, public transport, and I actually saw a digital ad for the new Plini album on public transport here in Munich.
Super cool. super cool. What else? Intervals, Circadian. That's a really nice album. Lunatic Soul, Through Shaded Woods. Green Carnation, Leaves of Yesteryear. Of course, Caligula's Horse, Rise Radiant. Fantastic album.
I think by now we have your top 10 of prog albums from 2020.
Oh, there's a good 35 more, but
yeah, I know.
That's the thing, dude. There's so many good albums, and I do not envy you reviewer people who have to rank them. I could never rank these albums. I have tried. I can't do it.
Truth be told, we are actually preparing something behind the scenes for the beginning of next year concerning all those amazing albums that came out this year, because this year has been fantastic when it comes to progressive rock and metal. There's no doubt about that. So many amazing albums, and the lists are endless. How many good albums actually came out this year?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's finish this off with 2 more little recommendations from my side for the What's in Your Walkman section, and that would be actually 2 EPs that came out today. No, 1 EP came out on Monday, I think, but this week. That would be from Porto in Portugal, and the band is called Phase Transition. The EP is called Relatively Speaking. It's really cool stuff with violin and everything. Definitely worth checking out. They definitely have something cool going on, and sounds very promising.
Right on.
The other one,
I love the addition real quick. Anyone who's able to bring other instruments into the traditional prog vocabulary, even though the addition of a violin is not revolutionary, but it's still a little out of left field when you compare it to most bands. And frankly, I wish that more bands would do that, because there's a beauty in these instruments that I think a lot of people don't appreciate. So definitely going to have to check that one out.
Yeah, and you just reminded me that one other album that came out today was the new Antoine Fafard album together with Gavin Harris and Chemical Reactions. It's chamber orchestra with drums and bass, and it's so amazing. And there's one track on that album with a cello solo, and I loved it so much.
Gavin's my favorite drummer, so anything that he does is worth a listen.
No surprise there. Finally, I still have here one little EP that dropped today, and I haven't checked it out yet. But the two guys that are doing this project, called Their Dogs Were Astronauts, from Austria, I think they are. They're really cool, and the concept of this EP also looks very intriguing because it's based on some book. The EP is called Charge Discharge, and the book is called The Outlaw Ocean by Ian Urbina. I'm definitely gonna listen to that and have a look into the concept because it sounds very intriguing. That's gonna be one hell of a playlist, I think, that we're gonna put together. I'll get back to you, Vikram, in the next days about some more specific picks from albums that you mentioned. For now, all the best with your with the launch of Silent Skies that has been today and will be probably a little bit ongoing for the next weeks. I hope the buzz will keep up, and also really curious about what you'll be up to next, what we'll be hearing from you next, from either from the Redemption or the Lux Terminus camp. For now, we are gonna see each other or write each other definitely. I hope you will be able to come in and chat with us during the festival. That's gonna be.
I wouldn't miss it. I promise. Wouldn't miss it.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time. All the best, Vikram. Talk to you very soon. And to our listeners, as always, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and listen to great music.
Thanks a lot for having me. Take care.
The Progcast is a production of Stuus Media and is presented by the Prog Space. It is produced by Randy M. Salo, Janine Stengel-Lewis, Blake Lewis, and Dario Albrecht. Our theme music is by This Is Not an Elephant, and Van Kirsch does our graphics. New episodes of the Progcast drop every Monday and Thursday, and don't miss our Friday Top 5 episode where we discuss our favorite new releases from that week. For more interviews and reviews in the written form, check out theprogspace.com.